So picture this. It is 1932. The Great Depression isn't just a headline anymore. It's the air people are breathing.
Right. Banks are failing. Unemployment is through the roof, something like 25%. The mood is just bleak.
But if you were in Rhode Island on a Tuesday night,
Yeah.
and you knew the right people, you could find this little pocket, this escape from all of that.
Exactly. You weren't worrying about bread lines or if your bank was going to open. You were, arguing about the perfect tension for a silk thread or how to hide a coin in a way that just defies physics.
We are basically opening a time capsule today. We're going to zoom all the way in on Ring 44 of the International Brotherhood of Magicians.
Which is such a specific, almost microscopic slice of history. This isn't the story of some big-name magician on Broadway.
No.
This is a story about a locksmith, a pharmacist, and a jeweler in Providence who built this little secret society to keep their sanity during one of the hardest decades in American history.
And our source material for this is incredible. We have a stack of field reports, basically meeting minutes, sent to the Linking Ring magazine all through 1932.
And they're written by magicians, for magicians, so you get this incredibly unfiltered insider look. It's technical, it's gossipy, and surprisingly emotional.
So our mission is to reconstruct their world. Who were these guys? What were they actually doing? And how did they find magic in such a dark time?
All right, let's start with the cast of characters.
Yeah, who's running the show?
Yeah.
Because when you look at the membership, it's this wild mix of blue-collar guys and, like, Ivy League academics.
Well, the man at the top is Arthur A. Allman. The notes always call him the man with the 4 A's.
AAA Allman.
Right. He's the president, based in Pawtucket. But what strikes me is that he's not described as, a bureaucrat. He's the artistic soul of the group.
Artistic in what sense?
A craftsman. I mean, he built the tables they used. He turned wands on a lathe. For him, magic was a household affair. His wife is always sending greetings, and his son, Austin, was his assistant on stage. He's the guy physically building the illusions.
Okay, so you have the craftsman as president, but there's another name that seems to command even more respect in these early reports. Dr. John H. Davison.
The old-timer. That's his official nickname. He was the past president, but by 1932, he is clearly the spiritual center of the ring. They call him the wonder worker, the maestro.
I love the little personal details they throw in about him. Like there's a note from April that says the doctor is on a diet.
Yes, looking 20 years younger.
But then they immediately undercut it with a joke. The report says when he goes out, he'll eat all he can get and die at home.
Which tells you everything about the group dynamic, right? It's not this formal, stuffy club. They're roasting him. It's that kind of deep respect that's masked by friendly teasing.
And he seems to be the bridge between the hobbyists and the pros.
He is. And that mix is what's so interesting. You mentioned a jeweler earlier.
George Weatherall.
Yeah, George Weatherall. He had a studio in Providence. And think about the skills that requires in the 1930s.
Fine motor control, tiny gears.
Exactly. If you can fix a watch, you can definitely manipulate a coin. Then you have Eddie Rowe, a pharmacist at Brown University, and Bert Clark, a local locksmith.
A locksmith who, the notes claim, was a personal friend of Houdini.
Which sounds a little fishy at first, but then you think about it. If you're an escape artist, a locksmith is probably your most valuable consultant. Right?
It makes perfect sense.
So this wasn't just a bunch of guys buying tricks from a catalog. You've got a jeweler, a chemist, and a locksmith pooling their trade secrets to fool people. The technical skill in that room was just incredibly high.
So let's go to the meetings. Where are they even happening? Are they renting a hall or something?
And it's so much cooler than that. They rotated venues. In October, the report says they met inside Eddie Rowe's chemistry lab at Brown University.
You're kidding. Amidst the beakers and Bunsen burners.
Literally. The report says Rowe had to remove his chemical apparatus to clear the bench so the magicians could perform. It's such a vivid image. Outside, the depression is raging. But inside this Ivy League lab, these grown men are pushing science aside to practice card tricks.
They also met at Weatherall's jewelry studio.
And at President Allman's house, which apparently had a dedicated magic room.
Of course it did. Now, the reports use this specific phrase for what happened there. They call it the hoodwinking procedure.
Hoodwinking. It's a great word. The minutes say, the mages proceeded to fool each other. Really, it happened. This wasn't a show for an audience. This was peer review.
Right. Because fooling a regular person is one thing.
But fooling another magician, someone who knows the methods, who knows about false shuffles and hidden threads, that was the real badge of honor. It forced them to innovate.
And after the hoodwinking?
The eating. The reports always call it the bounteous collation.
That phrase is everywhere.
It seems like the wives, Mrs. Ullman and Mrs. Wetherold, were the real heroes here. They would prepare these huge feasts. The report from one meeting says the hungry magus gorged themselves.
Hungry magus.
Mm.
It's a funny phrase, but in 1932, it kind of lands differently.
It really does. There's a sense of a desperate consumption there. A bounteous collation wasn't something you took for granted. It feels like they were stocking up on calories and joy before heading back out into the real world.
So let's get into the magic itself. What were they actually performing? The reports are surprisingly detailed.
They are. It's a mix of like comedy stuff and really high-level dexterity. On the comedy side, there's this thing that keeps coming up called the depression trick.
Aptly named.
Very. It's a version of a classic called the Sun and Moon. Dr. Davison taught it to them. It involves cutting a club shape out and pasting it over an ace of hearts. You show the card, and through some clever patter, the club turns back into the ace. It was cheap, visual, and topical. A real laugh-getter.
But they were also pushing the technical limits. I was really impressed by the description of Wetherold's trick.
The floating cigarette. This was a big deal. The floating match was a standard bar trick, usually done with a thread on your jacket or a hidden thumb.
The so-called invisible support.
Right, but Wetherold took it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
The report says he improved the method 100%. He made a lit cigarette rise from his hand and, get this, he could bring both hands completely over and around it.
Wow, so no thumb support.
No thumb support and no visible thread from the hands. That implies a really sophisticated rig, probably using ultrafine hair anchored somewhere on his body. That's the jeweler's precision at work. He turned a simple bar trick into a miracle that could fool the experts.
And then you have the goofier stuff, like the color-changing bow tie.
Oh, yeah. The secretary bought one and said it created a mild sensation in stores. But he notes you had to wear a wing collar to make the mechanism work.
The fashion is always the price of magic.
It is. Then there was the Gazoozlum tree, performed by James Cox, which ended with a shower of water on the audience.
A prank, basically.
Eh.
President Ullman had his own version of that, didn't he?
The fire hose. He produces this small fire hose everyone expects to get soaked, but instead it shoots out a stream of red and blue sparks.
That sounds dangerous and beautiful.
And very Ullman. Remember, he's the artistic president. Sparks are much more aesthetic than water.
We have to mention one more guy, Bill Satchel, because of the Houdini connection.
Right, Bill Satchel. He shows up, tells some stories about Houdini, does some escapes. But the report includes this great inside joke.
Go on.
It says he tried to back palm Ullman's piano.
Okay, pause. Explain back palming for us.
Back palming is a really hard sleight of hand move where you hide a card on the back of your hand so your palm looks empty.
So the joke is that you can't possibly back palm a piano.
It is a physical impossibility, but the report just deadpans. However, it had been raining, and Bill said he would postpone that sleight until next meeting.
Classic magician's excuse. The humidity's off.
Exactly. It shows they're speaking the secret language that only they understand.
I want to circle back to Dr. Davison because he seems to be the ring's ambassador to the outside world.
He was. In 1932, travel wasn't easy or cheap, but he went all the way from Rhode Island to Kenton, Ohio for the big IBM convention. That's a serious trip.
But the best story is the picnic in Coshocton, Ohio.
Yeah, the Cockton picnic, this random gathering in Ohio, and all of a sudden, in walks Dr. Davison. He just showed up and surprised everyone.
And people were genuinely touched by that.
They really were. There's a great quote from a guy from Detroit who said, "Isn't he a grand man to make such a long trip alone just to see his friends?" It wasn't about business for him. It was about the community.
And he performed there, too.
He did his rice bowls routine, a true classic, and the reporter says he performed it masterfully.
Okay, but we have to address this very strange report about him from later in the year.
This is where the line between reality and sort of magician speak gets really blurry. The report says Dr. Davison was in Oklahoma experimenting with a disappearing automobile effect.
A disappearing automobile effect.
And that he was rendered hors de combat, out of action, and had to go recover in Tucson, Arizona at his son's house.
So reading between the lines, he got into a car accident.
Almost certainly. He probably wrecked his car, totaled it if it disappeared. But look at how they frame it. They don't say the doctor was injured in a crash. They frame it as a magic trick that went wrong.
It's a coping mechanism.
Absolutely. It keeps the world within their control. It's not a random, horrible tragedy. It's just a botched performance. It keeps the magic alive even when reality is literally crashing down around them.
And just before that accident was reported, the Ring took the time to honor him. This moment feels like the emotional heart of the whole story.
It really is. The October 1932 meeting, the magic wand presentation.
Set the scene for us.
They're at Weatherald's studio. President Ullman, the craftsman, has made a custom wand for Davison. And this isn't some store-bought stick. It's black ebony with white ivory tips.
Beautiful.
And it had a silver snake entwined around it, engraved with Davison's name. This was an object that took hours of real skill to create.
And Davison, who we know is this chatty storyteller, how did he react?
The report says he was at a loss for utterance, completely speechless, deeply moved. It was the group's way of saying, "You are our staunch friend." It shows this wasn't just a hobby club, it was a lifeline.
Absolutely. But we can't ignore the context. It's the Depression. And for some of these guys, magic wasn't just a hobby. It was how they tried to make a living.
That's right. There's a report from Pittsburgh in the same notes complaining that business is terrible, all charity and no pay. That was the reality for performers.
But Rhode Island guys were grinding.
They were. You see names like Dexter working as an MC in minstrel shows, Scola doing magic in cabarets. A guy named Chapman was booked 4 times by the same group. They were hustling for every single gig.
And Davison himself was performing professionally before his experiment.
He was. He and Everett Ingram missed a meeting because they were booked at Warwick High School. The bill was The Great Magician and Mysterious Ingram.
The Great Magician.
Yeah.
Simple. I like it.
And the report says it was one of the finest in high school annals. So they weren't phoning it in. They were giving a high school gym the full Broadway treatment. That's the professional ethic.
And they were already looking to the next generation, too.
Yeah, a student named Ev Murphy at Rhode Island State College of Education. They called him the Keller of RI State.
After Harry Keller, the legendary magician, that's high praise.
Huge praise. And Murphy specialized in thimble magic.
Thimble magic. That sounds quaint.
It sounds quaint, but it is incredibly difficult. It's pure manipulation, making thimbles appear, vanish, change color on your fingertips. It's not a prop trick. It's hundreds of hours of practice.
Wow.
And the fact that a college kid in the Depression was dedicating himself to mastering thimbles, it just shows that the art form was continuing, no matter what the economy was doing.
So what does it all mean when you put it all together? The tricks, the friendships, the hustle. Why does Ring 44 matter?
I think it matters because it's a blueprint for resilience. You have these massive external forces you can't control. So what do? You retreat into a world where you can control the laws of physics.
You build a space where you define reality.
Exactly. You make a cigarette float, you make a card vanish. It's about finding control in chaos. And that one presentation proves it was also about community. They were propping each other up to get through it.
There's one last image from the sources that really stuck with me. It's a description of Dr. Davison.
I think I know the one you mean.
It says he could carry a wad of gimmicks in his pockets without a bulge.
Without a perceptible bulge. That's the mark of a true magician.
Explain why that little detail is so important.
It means he was always armed. He walked through the world with this secret ability to create a miracle at any moment. But he didn't advertise it. He was always ready.
Always right.
He could be walking down a bleak street in 1932 looking like any other old man, but in his pocket, he had the tools to defy reality for a moment. And I think that's the spirit of Ring 44. They were all walking around ready to create a little bit of wonder.
And maybe that's something we could all use today, keeping a metaphorical wad of gimmicks in our pocket, just in case someone needs a little bit of magic.
Couldn't agree more.
That's it for this deep dive into the inner circle of 1932. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.